Welcome on board, chosen one. Let's not pretend. You already know why they're shaking. You already know why their voices cracked the moment your name showed up in the room. The funny part is, they really thought the universe would hand them the answer they wanted, like some cheap confirmation to make their ego feel bigger. They sent people to study you, to verify you, to tell them you were nothing special. They were hoping for a report that said, "Relax, they're not a threat." But reality doesn't bend for insecure people, and the truth came back like a punch to their pride. While they stood there waiting for someone to expose you, every source they trusted ended up exposing them instead. Press like and subscribe if you're ready to watch this message flip their whole world upside down. See, here's the cold truth they hate hearing out loud. Every expert they hired, every analyst they whispered to, every professional opinion they clung to like a lifeline came back with the same result. The result they never wanted. The result that made their stomach drop. Legendary, untouchable, out of reach. More than they guessed, more than they hoped you weren't. The universe didn't send them a warning, it sent them a mirror. And the mirror wasn't kind to them. It's crazy how history repeats itself, right? Back in school, remember when they talked behind your back because they swore you would never amount to anything? Then years later, those same people end up asking to pick your brain, acting like they didn't spend years doubting you. Same story, new characters. The pattern never changes. Your brilliance always forces the masks to fall. Your growth always shakes people who are too scared to grow themselves. They loved the version of you who didn't know your own power. They felt safe when you were unsure, when you were trying to prove yourself, when you let their words throw you off balance. But the moment you started moving like someone who knows exactly who they are, their whole strategy collapsed. And here's what they really can't stand. You didn't even try to beat them. You were just living, mind your own business, focused on your lane. But some people get offended by your existence alone. They can't stand that you don't need their approval. They can't stand that your confidence doesn't come from them. They can't stand the way you walk into a room like you know the universe is backing your every step. So they hired help. Investigators, experts, analysts, all hoping to find a crack in your armor. But those same experts had no choice but to send the truth back. This one is real. This one is solid. This one is built different. And that's when the panic started, because they didn't just lose the fight. They lost it with their own weapons. The people they trusted, the voices they depended on, the sources they believed were smarter than you all became your defenders without even trying. That's why there's so much silence around you now. Not peace, not respect. Silence. The kind that hurts their ego. The kind that reminds them that their whole plan fell apart the second you walked in with nothing but your truth. The same sources they weaponized against you now mock them. And you know what makes it even more humiliating? You never threw a punch. You never needed to. Their downfall came from their own desperation. The universe has this wicked way of exposing people at the exact moment they think they're in control. Like that time in your past when someone tried to embarrass you in front of everyone, but they accidentally revealed their own insecurity instead. People still remember that moment, even if they pretend they don't. The universe lets the truth slip out in ways no one can hide. That's exactly what's happening again. Your enemies told the world you were nothing special, but the world told them back that they were wrong. They said you were overhyped, until the people they trusted said, "No, this one is the standard." They thought you were a joke, until every voice they respected laughed at them instead. They expected someone to expose your flaws. Instead, the reports exposed their envy. They thought your shine was fake. Instead, the universe revealed that theirs was the one running on batteries. And now the air has changed. People look at you differently, not with fear, but with respect. that rare, quiet kind of respect that only shows up when someone has been proved right again and again. You're standing in the aftermath of a storm you never started, but somehow you're the only one left standing. The chosen one who didn't need approval, didn't need validation, didn't need to chase anyone. The universe handed you a win they never saw coming. And now they sit there wondering how it all flipped, how someone they underestimated became the one every source calls legendary, how someone they doubted ended up being the one they can't forget, how someone they tried to drag down became the exact person their own experts warned them not to mess with. Before we move on further, Chosen One, take a breath and look at what just happened. Every source they trusted stamped you as legendary, and now those same sources are clowning them for ever doubting you. That shift alone is enough to shake the room, and you felt it in your chest. So here's your moment to lock in. If you're ready to step fully into the power that even their own experts couldn't deny, drop a 999 in the comments. That number tells the universe you're not running from this story anymore. You're owning the role they tried to steal from you. Hit the like button, subscribe, and strengthen this message so it reaches every chosen one who's been underestimated the same way you were. Because now we're about to break this down step by step, and trust me, if you're really built for this, you'll feel something in you refusing to click away. You'll feel that pull only the real ones recognize, that quiet force saying, "Stay." You're finally hearing the truth about yourself. And with that, let's move into the next part. The part where the mask finally slips off your enemies. Number 1. The truth bomb report that blew up in their faces. Funny how the truth doesn't care about their feelings, but it sure exposes their lies. This is the part they never wanted anyone to see, the part they prayed would stay buried, the part they tried to control, twist, shape, and weaponize against you. But the universe doesn't bend for cowards, and behind those closed doors, something happened that slapped their ego so hard it still echoes. They gathered their experts, their dream team of professionals, hoping to finally prove what they kept whispering about you. They're fake. They're weak. They're manipulating everyone. They were desperate for someone with a title to say what their jealousy had been screaming for months. That's why they spent money they didn't have, time they shouldn't have wasted, and energy they could have used to fix their own lives. But when the reports came back, they didn't get the victory they imagined. They didn't get the validation they were craving. They didn't get someone patting them on the back saying, "Don't worry, you were right about them." Instead, the universe handed them the kind of truth that burns right through pride. You were the real deal. Not an act, not an illusion, not some performance meant to trick anyone. Just raw, natural force. The type of presence that doesn't need permission or approval to exist. And that's what broke them, because your enemies were ready to celebrate. They had their little speeches rehearsed, their "I told you so" smirk already locked in place. They really thought this team of experts would walk out, point at you and say, "We found the flaw." But the room went silent instead. The experts weren't smirking. They weren't laughing. They weren't confirming anything. They were staring at the results like they had just witnessed a glitch in the system. You weren't the fraud. Their entire narrative was. What do people do when the truth humiliates them? They panic. They scramble. They pretend they never said anything. They try to rewrite the timeline. But deep down, they know exactly what happened. Their entire plan collapsed because the universe decided to choose honesty over their insecurity. Let's break it down the way your enemies secretly do when they're alone with their thoughts. They asked the experts to decode your confidence. Was it arrogance? Was it manipulation? Was it fake? The answer came back sharper than a blade. No. It's authentic. It's earned. It's the result of someone who has lived through things most people would crumble under. They wanted the analysts to map out your growth. Was it luck? Did someone hand it to you? Did you cheat the system? The answer returned like a slap across their ego. No. The growth is real. It's consistent. It's built from discipline and resilience. They wanted the psychologists to expose your performance. Were you acting? Were you pretending? Were you trying to impress people? And the result hit them so hard they couldn't breathe. No, there is no performance. This is who they are at their core. This is the part that destroys them. Not that you're great, not that you're skilled, not that you're growing. It's that the very people they trusted to crush your reputation ended up confirming your greatness. Imagine how humiliating that is for them. It's like calling the fire department, hoping they'll put out someone else's flame, only for them to turn around and say, "Sorry, we can't." This fire was built to last. It's like trying to prove someone cheated in a game and instead discovering they played fair while you were the one bending rules. It's like hiring a detective to expose someone's secrets, and the detective comes back with a full report on your own lies. They weren't ready for that level of truth, and now you're probably wondering, why were they so obsessed with proving I was fake? Here's the answer they don't want you to hear. Because if you were real, then their excuses fall apart. If you were real, then their laziness is exposed. If you were real, then everything they said about you wasn't jealousy. It was insecurity wearing a mask. People who fear your potential must convince themselves you're faking it. Otherwise, they'd have to face the fact that you're simply built stronger. And trust me, chosen one. They've been wrestling with that truth ever since. Let's go deeper into what those experts actually saw. They observed someone who didn't break when everything went wrong, someone who kept going even when the universe threw storms at them, someone who rose without clapping for themselves, survived without bragging, and evolved without bragging about evolving. Do you know how rare that is? Most people collapse at the first sign of pressure. They fold when people judge them. They hide when life hits too hard. But you didn't. You adapted, you sharpened, you learned, you shifted, you survived days that would have erased other people. So when the experts looked at you, they didn't see a facade. They saw a blueprint the average person could never copy. And your enemies? They can't stand that. They thought your confidence came from ego. Turns out it came from experience. They thought your growth was random. Turns out it was earned. They thought your aura was rehearsed. Turns out it was natural. They thought you were pretending. Turns out they were projecting. This is why every source they trusted now mocks them. The professionals didn't show up to attack you. They showed up and discovered you were everything your enemies feared you would be. The universe handed them the kind of evidence that makes people rethink their entire personality. And let's answer another silent question in your head. Why do the experts always see my value before the people in my life do? Because strangers don't come in with envy. They come in with clarity. They don't have old grudges, jealousy, or insecurity clouding their vision. They don't see your glow as a threat. They see it for what it is. Your enemies, on the other hand, have always known your power. That's why they tried to bury it. But here's the twist. The more they tried to expose your weakness, the more the universe exposed theirs. And once that expert report dropped, everything changed. The energy shifted, the atmosphere cracked. People started seeing you differently, and your enemies started shrinking in their own shadows. They don't speak as loud now. They don't throw your name around as casually. They don't laugh as confidently because the universe put a stamp on your identity. A stamp nobody can erase, a stamp every expert had to acknowledge. Legendary, authentic, untouchable, exactly what they were hoping you weren't. And now, chosen one, the real story begins. Their proof made you unstoppable. Their investigation crowned you. Their experts validated everything you've known quietly for years. And the cruelest part for them, they paid for the report that destroyed their own narrative. Let's move forward. Things are about to get even uglier for them. Number 2. The psychologists who thought they'd expose you, but exposed themselves instead. Wild how they searched for your flaws and only uncovered their own fears. Here's the part your enemies didn't prepare for. They thought bringing in psychologists would give them some fancy explanation for why you shine the way you do. They expected words like unstable, attention-seeking, or emotionally volatile. They wanted someone with a degree to validate their jealousy. They wanted a stamp that said, "See, we told you this person isn't real." But what they got instead was the one truth they never wanted to face. You weren't broken. They were. Imagine this: a room full of professionals waiting to dissect you like a case study. Clipboards out, brows furrowed, all expecting to diagnose your downfall. But the moment they sat with you, something shifted. You didn't fit their little boxes. You didn't match their assumptions. You didn't fold under pressure. Instead, you made them question why anyone would want to tear someone like you apart. One of the first things the psychologists looked for was manipulation. They tried to track your motives, your words, your pauses, your choices. They wanted to find some hidden trick, some mask you were wearing. But every layer they peeled back only exposed more truth, more integrity, more earned confidence. "There is no manipulation present," one of them said. "Just someone who knows themselves too well for others to control." That line alone crushed your enemies. Think about it. They were hoping professionals would call you toxic. Instead, the professionals confirmed something your enemies always feared. You have healthy boundaries, and people who don't have boundaries hate people who do. Imagine this: you're sitting in that chair across from them, and they're studying you like you're some puzzle that shouldn't exist. They ask a question expecting you to stumble. Instead, you answer with clarity, with calmness, with a level of self-awareness they didn't expect. They wanted to see ego. Instead, they saw strength earned through storms. They wanted to see fragility. Instead, they saw someone held together by resilience, not insecurity. And you might wonder, why were they so desperate to prove something was wrong with me? Here's why. If you were healthy, then their behavior toward you has no excuse. If you were strong, then their attempts to tear you down weren't concern. They were sabotage. If you were stable, then every story they told others about you collapses in seconds. The psychologists were supposed to confirm that you were the problem. Instead, they confirmed your enemies were terrified of someone who has survived far more than they have. "Your silence isn't avoidance," one of the psychologists wrote. "It's strategic wisdom." That line alone made your enemies choke, because they always assumed your silence meant guilt, fear, shame, or confusion. They thought you kept your distance because you were hiding something, but the professionals saw the truth instantly. You understood the game better than anyone in the room. You weren't avoiding conflict. You were choosing peace because chaos doesn't deserve your energy. You weren't withdrawing. You were protecting your space. And nothing threatens insecure people more than someone who refuses to play their emotional ping-pong. Imagine this. They're trying to decode your quiet moments, expecting to find fear. Instead, they find discipline. They find emotional intelligence. They find someone who actually thinks before reacting. The psychologists didn't see instability. They saw clarity sharpened by pain. They didn't see fragility. They saw someone who survived experiences most people crumble under. Strength shaped by suffering, another psychologist concluded. Your enemies read that line like it was a death sentence. Because here's a secret they never wanted exposed. People who envy you hate when someone else confirms your power. Another metaphor for you. Imagine a sword. Everyone sees its shine, but not the fire that forged it. The heat, the pressure, the hammering. It all happened before anyone admired it. That's you. The psychologists thought they were studying a weapon gone wrong. Instead, they found a masterpiece shaped by battles you faced alone, and that makes you dangerous in the best way. Another quote the psychologists gave, the one that made your enemies lose sleep. Intensity is not instability, it is focused clarity. When they read that, everything inside them cracked, because they always portrayed your intensity as a flaw, too passionate, too serious, too much. But the professionals saw what your enemies couldn't admit. Intensity is a sign of someone who has survived more than the average person ever will. It's the mark of someone who no longer plays small. Your enemies wanted the psychologists to point at you and say, "See, they're unstable." Instead, the psychologists basically said, "This person is grounded. This person knows exactly what they're doing." And here's something else they found that burned your enemies alive. Your confidence wasn't arrogance. It wasn't bravado. It wasn't overcompensation. It was earned. You don't move like someone pretending. You move like someone who crawled out of a dark place and built a new identity from scratch. That kind of confidence can't be faked. It's the type only survivors carry. Imagine this. Someone tries to convince a psychologist that you're too confident, hoping they'll call it delusion. But instead, the psychologist leans back in their chair and says, "This is earned self-trust." That's when your enemies realize the game was over, because once professionals validate you, nobody takes your enemy's lies seriously ever again. And let's answer another question you might be asking silently. Why do professionals see me clearer than the people I've known for years? Because professionals aren't threatened by your potential. They aren't jealous of your growth. They aren't competing with you. They're trained to recognize truth, not protect their ego. When they looked at you, they didn't see someone trying to act strong. They saw someone who is strong. Another metaphor. Imagine someone tries to pass off a diamond as fake. They call in a gem expert expecting a laugh. But instead, the expert looks up and says, "Actually, this is one of the rarest cuts I've ever seen." That's what happened with you. They told experts you were fake. The experts told them you were priceless. And then came the final moment, the moment that turned your enemies pale. The psychologists didn't give a diagnosis. They gave a testimony about your resilience. A testimony about your emotional strength, a testimony about your evolution, a testimony that proved every lie your enemies spread was rooted in insecurity and fear. They expected pathology. They found purpose. They expected delusion. They found grounded clarity. They expected manipulation. They found boundaries stronger than their self-control. They expected chaos. They found a mind sharper than every trap they set. They expected to expose you. They exposed themselves, and now the universe is laughing at them through the mouths of the very people they trusted. This is your turning point, chosen one. The moment where the professionals confirmed what you always suspected. Your strength isn't an accident. Your resilience isn't luck. Your wisdom isn't a trick. You are the real thing, and they paid experts to prove it. Let's move forward. It gets even uglier for them from here. Number 3, the analysts who tried to expose you and exposed their own insecurity. Funny how they searched for shortcuts in your story, only to realize you never needed any. The performance analysts walked in with their chests high, ready to tear apart your timeline, like they were about to uncover some hidden cheat code. They wanted to prove your wins were accidents, loopholes, or luck that somehow slipped through the cracks. But the deeper they dug, the quieter that room became. Because every file, every timestamp, every step in your history told the same brutal truth. You weren't lucky. You were relentless. Imagine this, a team of experts scrolling through years of your effort expecting chaos, only to find strategy stacked on top of strategy. They thought they'd find gaps. Instead, they found discipline so tight it made their own careers look shaky. They expected randomness. Instead, they saw patterns built on purpose. Every achievement clicked into place like pieces of a puzzle they were too small-minded to see before. And here's what hit them hardest. Nothing accidental. That line slapped the air out of your enemies. They always swore you got lucky because admitting you outworked them would crush their ego. The analysts proved what they feared. You earned every inch of your progress. You moved with preparation they never had the guts to commit to. You might even wonder, why did they want so badly to believe I cheated? Because if you didn't cheat, then they have no excuse for losing. Another metaphor for them to choke on. Imagine calling a mechanic to prove a race car is defective, only for the mechanic to announce, "This engine is perfect. The driver just sucks." That's what happened. The analysts didn't just fail their mission. They crowned you without meaning to. They walked in ready to humble you. They walked out humbled by the truth. You were never the one cutting corners. You were the one building the road, and now the universe is laughing at them. Number 4. The social experts who tried to expose your influence and ended up explaining it for you. Wild how they searched for manipulation and only uncovered the gravity you naturally carry. The social analysts walked in with a mission: prove your influence was fake. They wanted charts, patterns, psychological tricks, anything to show the world you were pulling strings behind the scenes. They were ready to dissect your presence like it was some illusion that would fall apart under a microscope. But the universe had other plans. The closer they looked, the more the truth slapped them across the face. You weren't manipulating anyone. People followed you because your energy made them feel safe, not controlled. Imagine this: experts watching your interactions frame by frame, expecting to catch you slipping. They waited for rehearsed charm, calculated smiles, strategic flattery. Instead, they found something terrifyingly real: authentic leadership. You didn't chase people, you didn't beg for attention, you didn't shape-shift to fit in. You stayed solid, and others aligned themselves with you like planets pulled into orbit. One analyst actually wrote, "Their silence hits harder than most people's speeches," and that one line crushed your enemies instantly, because your enemies always claimed you were trying too hard. But the real truth? People gravitate to you because you don't need them. Your independence is magnetic. Your boundaries are loud without shouting. Your presence carries weight, even when you say nothing. You might be wondering, why did they want to paint me as manipulative in the first place? Because it hurt their pride to admit people preferred you over them naturally. They needed a reason that made them feel bigger, but the analysts stripped those excuses away one by one. Another metaphor they choked on. Imagine accusing someone of faking gravity, only to realize everyone just falls toward them on instinct. The analysts ran out of excuses, ran out of theories, ran out of explanations that didn't make them sound jealous. Their final conclusion was simple and devastating. Your influence is earned, not engineered, not rehearsed, not manipulated, just real, just consistent, just powerful in ways they'll never replicate. And now, those same sources they depended on are mocking them for ever thinking they could tear you down. Number 5. The moment their last excuse died in their throat. Nothing hurts a liar more than hearing the truth from the mouths of the people they trusted. This is the part where your enemies felt their stomach drop. They spent all that time talking big, acting confident, hoping the experts would hand them a shiny report, proving you were a fraud. But the universe loves plot twists, and this one punched them straight in the ego. Every single report came back pointing at the same truth. You were the real one, and they were the ones living in delusion. Instead of ammunition, they got mirrors. And those mirrors didn't show your flaws. They showed their insecurity, their jealousy, and their obsession with trying to tear down someone built stronger than their excuses. Imagine this. All their trusted sources gather around, clearing their throats, ready to present the findings. Your enemies are sitting there smug, waiting to celebrate. Then the experts open the files, and the room goes ice cold. Not a single conclusion supports their narrative. Not one. Every authority they hired, every specialist they believed would expose you, instead confirmed the opposite. This one is solid. This one is earned. This one is authentic. Those lines hit them like a knockout punch. You might wonder, why can't they just accept the truth and move on? Because accepting the truth means admitting they were wrong and small-minded and threatened by someone who never even fought them. It means accepting that the universe took your side, not theirs. And insecure people would rather choke on their pride than swallow reality. Another metaphor to make it sting deeper. Imagine bringing a referee to prove your opponent cheated, only for the referee to announce that you were the one fouling the whole time. That's exactly what happened. They weaponized authority. Authority turned around and exposed them. They can't call it bias. The experts had no reason to protect you. They can't call it luck. Every finding was consistent. They can't spin it. The truth is too loud, too detailed, too undeniable. Their last excuse is gone. Their last defense collapsed. Their last lie evaporated. And now the same sources they trusted are mocking them for ever doubting you. The universe made sure the truth didn't just defend you, it humiliated them. Let's keep going. Their downfall isn't finished yet. Number 6. The trauma experts who realized you weren't broken, you were reforged. Some people drown in their wounds. You turned yours into a weapon. The trauma specialists walked in expecting to find a mess. Avoidance, denial, hidden pain you were supposedly running from. Your enemies were banking on it. They wanted the experts to say you were unstable, cracked, unhealed. But instead, the specialists found something that scared them more than any diagnosis ever could. They found integration. They found someone who didn't run from their wounds, someone who dissected them, learned from them, and rebuilt themselves from the inside out. They expected damage. What they found was depth. Imagine this, a trauma expert reading your history, waiting to spot the signs of collapse, only to realize every scar became architecture, every heartbreak became strategy, Every loss rewired you into someone who doesn't break the same way twice. You didn't numb your pain, you studied it. You didn't deny your past, you mastered it. And the moment they realized how much inner work you've done, the room shifted. Because they knew instantly, you're not just strong, you're the kind of strong that scares insecure people. One of the specialists even wrote, "This level of psychological integration usually appears after decades of deliberate work." That line alone shattered whatever fantasy your enemies were clinging to. They wanted the experts to expose you as fragile. Instead, the experts exposed you as rare. You might wonder, why does my resilience bother them so much? Because your strength reminds them of the work they avoided. Because your healing makes their excuses look weak. Because your transformation proves they misjudged you from the start. Another metaphor they can choke on. Imagine a broken bone healing so well it becomes stronger than the original structure. That's you. Not damaged, reinforced. The trauma specialist didn't just clear your name. They issued a warning to anyone who doubted you. This person is not operating from pain, they are operating from wisdom. And now the universe is watching your enemies shrink from the truth they tried so hard to bury. Number 7. The coaches who tried to teach you and ended up taking notes. Some people train for greatness, others are the training. The performance coaches stepped in thinking they'd catch you slipping. They were ready to point out flaws, amateur habits, messy execution, anything to prove you were overrated. But the second they watched you in motion, everything changed. Instead of seeing mistakes, they saw mastery. Instead of finding gaps, they found precision. Instead of spotting weaknesses, they found someone who adapts faster than their frameworks can even measure. They didn't school you. You schooled them without lifting a finger. Imagine this, a room full of coaches whispering to each other as they observe you handle challenges like you've been doing this your whole life. They're flipping through their playbooks, trying to match you to a model or category, but nothing fits. Your systems are cleaner, your preparation is sharper, your focus is steadier. You weren't pretending to be elite, you were operating at a level they only read about in textbooks. One coach even said their execution resembles what we see in world-class performers. That one sentence alone sent your enemies spiraling because they needed the coaches to say you were careless, untrained, lucky. Instead, the coaches admitted you were beyond what their formulas could explain. You might be wondering, why did they expect me to be unskilled? Because they judged you from the outside. They assumed your results came easy. They thought your success was accidental, but the coaches saw the truth instantly. Your excellence wasn't a surprise. It was a pattern. Another metaphor to burn this in deeper. Imagine bringing a chess master to expose someone as a beginner, only for the master to whisper, "We're standing in front of a grandmaster in disguise." The coaches didn't just fail to find mistakes, they realized you were the standard. You don't chase greatness, you move like greatness. Their final conclusion said it all. You're not acting elite, you're simply elite. And now even the experts they trusted are laughing at them, forever doubting you. Number 8. The relationship experts who tried to expose you and ended up exposed themselves. Some people weaponize love, you weaponize standards. The relationship analysts walked in expecting drama. They thought they'd uncover manipulation, hidden agendas, emotional games, something they could point to and say, "See, this is why people follow them." Your enemies wanted the experts to stamp you as toxic, controlling, unstable. But the universe refuses bad scripts, and the truth slapped everyone across the room. Because instead of chaos, the analysts found something terrifyingly clean. Textbook boundaries. Imagine this: analysts flipping through case files, expecting emotional messes, only to find clarity sharper than their own training. You don't chase people. You don't beg for energy. You don't cling to connections that drain you. You walk away from anything that lowers your frequency, and that alone makes insecure people crumble. Your standards filter people long before you have to. You don't play chess with humans. You simply refuse to sit at tables built on disrespect. One expert even wrote, "This person filters relationships through values, not emotions." That line alone silenced your enemies, because they've spent so long painting you as cold or difficult, pretending your boundaries were flaws instead of power. But the analysts saw instantly what others were too intimidated to admit. Your presence forces everyone around you to level up or leave. There is no middle ground. You might wonder, why did they want to believe I was manipulative? Because if your boundaries are healthy, then their behavior toward you wasn't. If your clarity is real, then their excuses fall apart. If your self-worth is solid, then the story they told others collapses instantly. Another metaphor they can choke on: imagine accusing someone of playing mind games, only for the expert to reply, "No games detected, just standards you couldn't reach." The relationship analysts expected to silence you. Instead, they silenced themselves. Their report was simple and brutal. No games, no toxicity, no scripts, just someone who knows what they deserve and refuses to shrink for anyone. Your enemies didn't just lose this round, they lost the narrative completely. Number 9. The world that tried to doubt you is now choking on the truth. Nothing melts a fake narrative faster than undeniable proof. Right now, the world around you is glitching. Group chats are spiraling. Whisper networks are overheating. Private conversations sound like panic rooms. Because the truth they ran from, the truth they mocked, dodged, denied, just got shoved into their faces by the very experts they trusted. And now they can't hide behind their favorite excuse: "We were just being skeptical." No, they were being jealous. They were being threatened. They were praying you were an illusion so they wouldn't have to face how small their own reflection looked next to yours. Imagine this: a whole group of people clutching their phones, rereading the reports, trying to make the truth fit their old narrative, like forcing a broken puzzle piece into place. But it doesn't fit anymore. It never did. The universe finally said, "Stop lying," and ripped the mask off all of them at once. That's why they're spiraling. Because deep down, they always knew you were the real thing. They felt it in the way you moved, the way rooms shifted when you walked in, the way people listened to you without being asked. They didn't want to admit it, so they hid behind doubt like a shield. You might wonder, why are they melting down now? Because now they have no escape route, no excuses, no stories to rewrite, no expert to hide behind. Another metaphor to make it sting: imagine someone swearing the sun is fake until the brightest sunrise of their life hits them in the face. That's what this moment is for them. They denied your light, and now it's burning through every lie they built. Their ego is shattered. Their jealousy is exposed. Their narrative is dead. The world finally sees what they feared all along. You weren't pretending. You were legendary from the start. Number 10. The final verdict they can't outrun: legendary. Funny how a word they laughed at is now the word that haunts them. This is the finish line they never expected you to reach. The point where every expert, every specialist, every consultant across every field had to come together and admit the same brutal truth. You're legendary. Not metaphorically, not casually, not as a joke. Officially, professionally, documented by people who don't care about your enemy's feelings, egos, or insecurities. These weren't your friends writing these assessments. These weren't biased supporters. These were neutral professionals with nothing to gain by praising you, and they were the ones who stamped the label your enemies mocked for years. Imagine this: leadership experts reviewing your impact and finally saying, "This is top-tier influence." Communication experts studying your words and concluding, "This is clarity and presence at a level we only see in elite performers." Credibility consultants digging through your history and whispering, "Everything checks out, everything holds, everything aligns." One field after another, one specialist after another, repeating the same word like an echo bouncing off the walls of your enemy's pride. Legendary. You might wonder, why does this hit them so hard? Because they spent years pretending the word didn't fit you. They joked about it, rolled their eyes at it, tried to make others doubt it. They wanted so badly to believe you were exaggerating your potential. But now, the universe has receipts written in cold, neutral ink. And nothing is more terrifying to insecure people than evidence they can't twist. Another metaphor to make their defeat sting deeper. Imagine someone swearing a diamond is fake until a certified gemologist hands them an official report proving it's one of the rarest cuts ever recorded. That silence afterward. That's what your enemies are feeling now. They can't deny it. The experts outrank their opinions. They can't dismiss it. The documentation is too solid. They can't rewrite it. The universe stamped the truth before they even woke up. The funniest part? This was the word they mocked. The title they said you'd never earn. The identity they swore was delusion. And now it's carved into the record by people with no emotional ties, no agenda, no bias, just truth. You're not manufactured, you're not lucky, you're not pretending, you're not hype, you're built different. And now it's not just a feeling, it's official, it's recorded, it's irreversible. And the people who wanted you exposed now have to live with the verdict that exposes them instead. Legendary. Exactly what they feared you'd become. Exactly what you were the whole time. Number 11. The universe turned the tables in your favor. There comes a moment in every story when everything flips. A moment when the universe quietly steps in and says, "Enough." For you, that moment arrived the second they tried to weaponize experts, analysts, coaches, psychologists, and consultants against you, and every single one of those sources ended up siding with you instead. What your enemies didn't realize was that every attempt to break you was actually building your case. Every jab they threw became evidence of your strength. Every lie they told became proof of their insecurity. They thought they were guiding the narrative. They didn't know the universe had been recording every detail behind their backs. Imagine this.